9:30. We have, and we obviously have the Department of Land and Rural Development here with us on the platform. So I would like to get going. We've got a number of apologies that that we've got to get through, and I want to give the meeting its full time and for us to be able to engage on some of the issues. May I ask the committee secretariat if you could flag the agenda so that we can move from there? Whilst Denver, you are doing that, I'm just wanting to make sure that the meeting has a sufficient number of members on it so that we can proceed. I think if I may just check. Can I just, before we get on to that, I see Honorable Bateman here, and I saw Honorable Gamete earlier on. There may be a number of other members here who are here.
Morning, Chair Mkonto, I'm here.
Honorable Mkonto, good to see you. Welcome back. I heard you were not well, so I'm glad you are back and strong and with us. So I think we can proceed then. In the light of that, here is the agenda for today. The agenda will have an opening and a welcome. We'll note the apologies, the presentation on the Department of Land and Rural Development, and then we'll proceed with announcements for the rest of the week, and the meeting will close. It's a very straightforward agenda. Today we're here to discuss issues that speak to the Department of Land and Rural Development, and I'll give a bit of a brief about how that goes. May I ask if there's a member who would like to move for the adoption of the agenda?
Mkonto, I move, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Mkonto. And is there a member who will second that? Honorable Bateman, I see your hand. Therefore, the meeting is thus duly, the agenda is just duly adopted. Thank you very much to both Honorable Mkonto and Honorable Bateman. Honorable Gamete, I see your hand is up. Is there anything you'd like to raise?
I'm sorry, Chairperson, please forgive me. I've been trying to press here. No, I just wanted to maybe include, I see on item number 3, I know the agenda has been adopted, but I see maybe for future purposes, the item number 3, which is a presentation, can we also include in between the presentation and the announcement, the discussion? I just wanted to...
The deliberations by members. I do take your point, Honorable Member, and when we put the agendas going forward, we'll then make sure those are included as such. Honorable Member, in the light of today's discussion, there have been many things that are both a function of the history of our country, but both the current economic realities. Land reform, land restitutions are important pillars of our Constitution. Equally so, the Constitution hangs on the idea of justice, but the Constitution equally so protects the rights of every citizen in the country. The Department of Rural and Land Development has been tasked today to present to us on the Appropriations Bill. May I highlight, Honorable Members, as I typically do, that we don't deal with some of the programmatic aspects of what the department does. We reflect deeply on whether the budget allocated is sufficient for the work that the department needs to do, and does it achieve the objectives that are outlined in the medium-term development plan and ultimately aligned with, as per the Money Bills and Related Matters Act, emanating from the priorities set up in the State of the Nation address. So in the light of that context, Honorable Members, we are going to proceed with the presentation today. As we go, I want to note a number of apologies. The Minister of the Department of Land and Rural Development, Honorable Mzwandile Nyonso, will not be able, has sent an apology. The Deputy Minister, Honorable Stanley Mathabata, has also sent an apology. The Deputy Minister of Finance, Honorable Saropin, has sent an apology. Honorable Waitlin has sent an apology, and Honorable Kwankwa has sent an apology. The other apologies of today are obviously the most recent one was from the Deputy Minister of Finance. I want to say we'd adjusted this meeting specifically at the request of the department, given that we couldn't convene the last time. So whilst I accept the apology of both the Minister and Deputy Ministers, do not take kindly to it, simply because I think political principles need to be able to come and account for the work that they do in their respective departments. And so I would urge that whilst we receive the apology, that at least in the light of the nature of the discussion, at least the Minister or the Deputy be present. With those apologies, may I ask if there are any other additional apologies that need to be sent? Mashile or the Secretariat?
Good morning, Chairperson and honorable members on the platform. We have an apology from Honorable Siate, and then Honorable Mwali will be joining us a little later as soon as he lands in Johannesburg. Thank you,
Okay.
Chairperson. Yes.
With the accumulation of all those apologies being noted, we can then proceed to the business of the day. That being the presentation by the Department of Land and Rural Development. Given that the executive is not here, I'm going to request that the leader of the delegation, which I would assume is the Director General or the Acting Director General, to be able to take us through the presentation. The members of the team can be introduced as we go, and then post facto, when members take up deliberations, we can go from there. So may I recognize the director for the department?
Good morning, Chairperson.
Good morning.
Am I audible?
You are both audible and visible.
Okay, thank you. Chairperson, thank you very much. My name is Clinton Hyman. I am the acting DG for the Department of Land Reform and Rural Development. I just firstly want to thank you for the opportunity to present. Chairperson, with me today, the person that will be doing the majority of the presentation is my acting CFO, Ms. Melda Makono, but we also have all the DDGs from the department. As far as I can see from the list, I haven't received apologies. I think there's an apology from the DDG Rural Development. Ms. Moyo is on study leave at the moment. However, she is represented by her acting DDG, Ms. Riada Vos. Chairperson, the department appreciates the opportunity to appear before the Standing Committee on Appropriations to brief the committee on the 2026 Appropriation Bill and the department 2026-27 spending plans. The presentation that we have has been structured in such a way that we talked to the spending plans for 26-27, as mentioned, the measures implemented to improve spending efficiency. We're also looking at the rollover requests of the funds unspent for 24-25 allocation. We're also going to look at the interventions relating to lease debt, fruitless and wasteful expenditure. We're also going to look at the progress in the implementation of the land reform and restitution programs, and then current initiatives in advancing inclusive participatory, inclusive participation of historically excluded communities in departmental programs. Chairperson, the department's 2026-27 allocation supports the implementation of land reform, restitution, tenure reform, rural development support, land administration, and related institutional responsibilities. The presentation that we have will further outline the key expenditure drivers in the department and the measures that are currently underway to improve expenditure, planning, procurement, alignment, project management, monitoring, payment controls, revenue collection, and financial compliance processes. The department continues to implement administrative and operational measures aimed at improving coordination across the programs, strengthening implementation monitoring, and improving expenditure performance. The briefing that will follow also provides updates on restitution, land redistribution, tenure reform, post-settlement support, and the management of the agricultural holdings portfolio. Chairperson and committee members, the department will also address the issues raised by the committee during the role. The department will address the matters raised by the committee that relate to rollovers as requested, relating to the 24-25 underspend and the current leasing debt position, the measures underway to improve revenue collection and expenditure performance. The briefing will further outline current initiatives aimed at advancing inclusive participation of historically communities. So, Chairperson, without any further ado, I would like to hand over to the Acting Chief Financial Officer to take the committee through the detailed financial and expenditure presentation, after which any program leaders can address specific matters as per your guidance. I thank you, Chair. CFO? With your permission, Chair, can I hand over?
Please do. What I'd like to request is that the presentation has been sent to members. So therefore, it isn't crucial that we go through every detail, but I think it's important, given this is our first engagement with a particular department, that we give it its due attendance. So it is now just about 9:42. I'm going to give you 33 minutes. If you can aim to be done with the presentation about 10:15, that'll be helpful. We'll proceed from there.
Thank you. I'm not sure if I'm audible.
You are audible. May I request that you have your video on also, because
I'm trying to get it on. Is it coming?
It comes on and off. So yeah.
Is it back? Thank you.
It's still not on.
I think something wrong with my gadget. My apology, Honorable Chair. Because everything is on. With that, Chair, I would like to then proceed. Ralph, are you able to then project the presentation quickly? Thank you so much. My name is Mokiti Melda Mukono. I will be presenting the department's briefing on the 26-27 budget and our spending plans. I'm currently the acting CFO within the department. If you can go to the next slide, Ralph. Honorable members, as I said, good morning to you, Chair. Good morning to honorable members, DG, and colleagues on the platform. The first slide, our contents will look at allocation spending plan. You've specifically requested what happened with regard to the rollover that we've requested of about 720 million. We've got our improvement on the spending efficiencies. We look at the fruitless and wasteful expenditure and the progress on land reform. And what we tried to do with the presentation is that we then had to bring in the spending efficiencies as well as the adequacy. And I think Chair did open with the opening, said that we need to look at whether our budget is adequately funded, looking at the big mandate that we have as a department. But on the introduction, Chair and honorable members, I would like to then start on with just to indicate that this is our second budget that we tabled. We were previously the Department of Agriculture, Land Reform and Rural Development. We then had split it between the Department of Agriculture as well as the Department of Land Reform. When the split happened, the Department of Land Reform and Rural Development is the big department following the NMOC process, and we got 60% of the allocation from what was in the baseline from DALRAD. The establishment meant that the split meant that we needed to deal with Program 1, just to indicate that from the Program 1 perspective, we had to then split the department between 60-40, 60 of the officials coming to land reform and 40% having been placed in the Department of Agriculture. So when it comes to that, we had to share when it comes to capacity. We currently in the process of finalizing our fit for purpose, because that would assist us in ensuring that it unlocks the plans that we've tabled in this report. Also, again, that the department has got 2 trading entities. One is agricultural land holding account, as well as the deeds trading account, and both these trading accounts do bill and collect revenue on behalf of the state. And this presentation would look at specifically lease collection that then it resides within the agricultural land holding account. This is operates as self-sustaining. It's not getting any government funding, grants funding or anything from the fiscus. We do collect from the registration of properties when we do registration. The next slide then deals with the allocation for the 26-27. Our cost drivers mainly is financial compensation. You see that land reform and restitution takes the bigger part of the budget. We've got about 10.3 billion. In that allocation, land reform and restitution takes the bigger chunk, followed by administration, rural development, and land administration. And our biggest driver within restitution is around the financial compensation that we then give to a land claimant. And then from an economic perspective, you'll see that our biggest budget, 40% of it goes towards transfers and subsidies, mainly on household, and which the biggest driver becomes restitution. Can you then move to the next slide? This is the program and sub-program. You'll see what the programs that we've got from Program 1 to the last program being rural development. And if you look at our sub-program, one is standard administration, and you look at land administration in that program, we've got sub-program geometric management services, which is the branch that then deals with all geometics and surveying in the country. We've got our SPLAM and then this as a trading entity. And then we've got 2 planners, council of planners, and also the geometric council that we do support as the department. And we've got also the South African Special Data Infrastructure that we then do budget for. Then within the restitution sub-program, we've got commission. Commission is also a trading entity within the department, but its mandate is only to deal with research and of this land claims. But once they conclude their research and finalize them, the implementation of what they've done comes to the department. That is why you would see that we've got in that sub-program, we've got commission and we've got restitution. So the restitution then branch with 3.8 billion then finalizes the claim in terms of paying financial compensation to claimants that would have opted to receive cash or facilitating or buying land where the claimants or communities have decided to opt for land. And then you've got your land redistribution and tenure reform branch that deals with restitution and tenure. And we've got a trading entity, ALA. We also having a trading entity, an entity in Ngonyama Transport, which is within the land reform, which we do give funding for. And for the next financial year, they will be getting 23.7 million. And we also do have another entity called Office of the Valuer General, getting 155 million that are tasked to ensure that all the valuations that we put up aligns to legislation in terms of the values being equitable, fair and equitable when we then acquire this land. Rural development, Honorable Chair and members, we then have got we've got a skills training program, which is called NARISEC. You'll see the 291.5 million is appropriated towards it. And then we've got rural infrastructure development. This is where we do rural infrastructure, social infrastructure in rural areas to ensure that we then uplift those areas. We also have got technology and research and also rural development coordination, because rural development is one of those that each and every department and contributes towards, and also local government towards contribute towards ensuring that we then uplift the lives of people in rural areas. Can you then move to the next slide? The next slide, this is just on the economic classification. I've already indicated that the biggest budget goes to, in terms of the transfers, goes to household, with the 3 billion that you're seeing there, which is household, and 1 billion within transfers and subsidies goes to departmental agencies and accruals. And just to also indicate from a compensation of employee perspective, with the 2.8 billion, this is currently enough to fund the existing staff after we've split it. With the realigned structure, or fit for purpose structure, there would be a need for us to look at that cost driver, and also look at how we can then repurpose to ensure that we get maximum out of the staff that we have, because the ceiling of compensation is always the toughest when we negotiate with budget increases, or when we do bilaterals with National Treasury. Can you get to the next? Oh, sorry, just on the payment, go back, Ralph, sorry. On the payment for capital asset, I would just also want to bring the members to this distinction. On payment for capital asset, you'll see that the land and subsoil, we've budgeted 521 million, and you look at household at 3 billion. So what we're currently sitting with in the country is that a lot of majority of our claimants are choosing opting for cash rather than opting for land. So what we do with trend analysis, looking at projections, we then budget and align budget based on what the communities or claimants would have been would have chosen. So ideally, would love to see land and subsoil exceeding far more of household in terms of restitution. And then the next two financially, you'll see those are our allocations and the estimated allocations and the increases. The next slide on our planning spending plans, we've got our 10.3 budget, which will be split and spent. We've got contractual commitments, which is sitting at around 52%. We've got land claims at 28%, and then other procurement other spending will do through procurement processes, and as well as other transfers to beneficiaries. That is how we'll then be distributing and ensuring that we then spend the budget that we have. Can you go to the next slide? When we look at specifically within the land redistribution space, looking at 26-27 spending plan, zooming into ALA. With ALA, we've got a budget of they've budgeted to spend about 1 billion for the next financial year, and that 95% would be directed to key portfolios. We deal with acquisition of land, land development support. This is where we support our beneficiaries that would then have been allocated this land. The land is allocated on a list-based perspective, and then we also have costs that relates to management of the land portfolio. The distribution is sitting at 42% at land acquisition, and land development support at 22% and 33%. And when I come to another slide where we'll be discussing the adequacy in terms of funding, you'll see that this portfolio within ALA, from a budget perspective, it's not necessarily enough to get us to buy the land that we require. With regard to the service delivery targets, within the land redistribution space, we're planning to utilize the budget to acquire about 35,000 hectares of this land, and also supporting 27 farms. We do, with land development support, we do support our beneficiaries with an infrastructure, machinery, production, and technical support, so that we ensure that the land becomes efficient and productive, because land is an economic asset that needs to be used for economic purposes, especially because in this portfolio, we really bought very high value commercial and medium scale and commercial value of this property. So unlocking that productivity in those land will also assist in unlocking economic spin-offs within the country. So that is the on the table there, you'll see the strategic land acquisition and the targets, as well as the budget, as well as what we will do in land development, and also the cost that relates to property management. In property management, we're dealing with two issues. One, the rates and taxes to municipalities, and two, the transfer of title deeds to eligible beneficiaries. So beneficiaries that are eligible to transfer of this land, what we do is we also do a transfer this plus land to those beneficiaries at a later stage, when they've demonstrated that they could be able to farm, and as well as would have settled all the outstanding debts, which I'll cover quickly on the revenue side. Can you move to the next slide? The next slide, this will be the projection within the deed space. Deeds, as I said, is it's a self-sustaining entity. We collected about 1.1 billion annually. This is also dependent on the property market, but so far we're doing well in terms of recovering what we've built, and the main cost drivers within deeds is compensation of employees, because this is where technically you need human bodies to ensure that they then administer these deeds and register these deeds. And then we've got goods and services, as well as assets. The also second biggest driver here, we're reforming and implementing an EDRS, electronic deeds registration system, so that we can then move from registering deeds manually into an electronic based system. Can you move to the next slide? The next slide is just the offices within the deed space. You'll see some offices presents deficits, some offices have got surpluses. We've got our biggest offices, which is your Gauteng North, South, as well as then Western Cape. These are deeds boundaries in terms of where you could eligible to register your deeds in the country. The bigger offices do subsidize, cross-subsidizes the smaller offices, and to see that at the end of the day, we then don't have any deficit in this entity. Can we move to the next slide? The next slide, Chair, is the request to look at what 24-25 rollover we presented. Just to give just a background, in the 24-25, we had a budget. We had to now separate, because as I said, we were DALRAT. This is where the core mandate or the core branches of the Department of Land Reform within the DALRAT budget that we presented in the annual report that we presented. And the land reform programs managed to achieve 90% with 720 million. That we did request National Treasury for a rollover. National Treasury did approve about close to 647 or so million on the rollover, and that is specifically for restitution. Chair, in restitution, we've been having a bit of a challenge with regard to settlement of or payment of financial compensation to our beneficiaries on time, mainly because we had to have a change in the system that we're utilizing. We're utilizing a certain bank, and and then from that on, the National Treasury as well as the Auditor General were not comfortable with the control environment, especially because those banking details of individual beneficiaries would need to be verified before any payment would be done. So we then decided with National Treasury that we'll be using and implementing a new system, a bulk transfer system in conjunction with Treasury, assisting us to develop that system. The system currently now it came to operation in the last quarter of this year. We've been having a bit of glitches also again, that is also causing the underspending, and that is precisely why we had an underspending in the previous year, and with the challenge persisting a bit. We've got steering committee weekly. We're looking at unlocking all those challenges of introducing a new system. But the benefit of it is that all the beneficiaries that we pay, which are a lot because we pay directly a beneficiary, each and every banking detail of that beneficiary is then verified and validated through National Treasury System before any funds can be transmitted to beneficiaries. Can you move to the next slide? The next slide is on the improving the spending efficiencies. What we've done in the space, Chair, is that we had to relook at when we split it. We had to do a detailed review of our budget during the budget planning phase. We developed the service delivery improvement plans where we were aligning each and every project plans with the budget to ensure that we also align it with our procurement plan to ensure that we do procurement at the right time, and especially when you do it at the right time, also you need the right costs so that we then reduce wastages. We had to relook at our sourcing strategies. How then are we then going to ensure that we do spend coming out from a backdrop of not spending the budget, and which we will do with the monitoring that we'll do in the current year. With the land claim, the bulk transfer system, that is an area that we definitely looking at to improve. The DG is also very hands-on in trying to unlock this area, so that we see efficiencies and start to see that we then transmit a lot of commitments on approvals on restitution claimants, so that they can then get the outstanding money that we need to pay them. Can you move to the next slide? On the side of fruitless, reducing wastages also, and on fruitless, we reported in the annual report 137 million. With of it, we've got non-compliance paying suppliers on time, because we did have some interest that were charged on this account, which amounted to about 4%. We've been working hard in this area to try to improve the turnaround. We're now sitting between 95 and 90%, 99% of paying our suppliers in time. Our targets in the APP is to make sure that we pay each and every supplier 100% on time. We intensifying this process. We're also hopeful that with the National Treasury System that they are busy working on, that we will be able to track, not manually but through the system, we'll be able to pick up those invoices in the system and act on them very quickly. Then the second issue is on the fruitless, is around a program that was done in Dalrat on PESI. This program has gone to the Department of Agriculture, but what precisely happened in the previous years, I think just after COVID, around COVID's time, we implemented PES program with an automated system, voucher system, giving beneficiaries system over the voucher over the phone, and they go and redeem those vouchers, getting agricultural inputs from the approved dealers. What has happened here is that the auditors were not happy that we did not keep any form of records in terms of when these vouchers were redeemed. Everything was done automatically, but that proof of delivery was not sufficient when the auditors were auditing it. We're still discussing with the AG regarding alternative procedures. We did clear some of the fruitless under assessment based on the beneficiaries that would have confirmed that they did receive, but just also to indicate that when the funds were given, a detailed work was done where each sites were visited, coordinates were taken, beneficiaries were verified, they checked against Home Affairs data sets. So from a planning perspective, that project ran, but the problem was that the automation part did not create, there was a problem with the proof of delivery. PES 2 was then incorporated with that proof of delivery, and that risk was eliminated. But best PES 1 is the one that we still need to deal with. We've got cases that are also coming from from forensic investigation. And some is non-compliance with supply chain processes, as well in terms of training. Some officials did not attend trainings as indicated, but just also to indicate that 78% of these cases would be transferred to agriculture, because they relate to a function that would have moved to the agriculture. The DG in this case did appoint a financial compliance committee within the department that is managing this fruitless and wasteful expenditure, and also dealing with consequence management, referrals of consequence management to corporate services to ensure that we then deter officials from committing such. If you move to the next slide, Chair, that would be the leasing debt. This leasing debt, you can move to the next slide, where there's just move to the next slide. This graph. Yeah, thanks. The agricultural land holding account has been battling a lot with regard to collection of leases. Beneficiaries that are on our farms have not been paying their leases. And on top of that, the agricultural land holding account, the capacity to ensure that they enforce and monitor all these farms is also limited. You'll see the trends there that we've seen a slight increase in the debt book of about 11%. We're saying slight, Chair, because if we pre-2022-23, when we started with the revenue implementation plan, the rise of the debt book was very high, and then we worked on the revenue implementation plan, and then we started to see a bit of a rise in collection. But in the 25-26, we're still finalizing the numbers, but we saw a decline in collection in the 25-26. Can you move to the next slide? As I said, we've got the revenue enhancement strategy to just stabilize this area. If you can go to the next slide, just to indicate the areas that we're looking at. We looked at, when we started this program, looked at strengthening the database, improving billing. We looked at debt collection strategies, getting the debt collector in, our follow-up mechanism, which I said, this is also driven from a human resource capability, which is a bit limited within the trading entity, and escalation and breaches with legal. As well as the last two, which is to make sure that we provide technical support to these beneficiaries, because if chasing a beneficiary that's sitting on a farm that is not producing doesn't yield any results. So we are working to ensure that at least these beneficiaries are they produce on these farms, and then there's economic means, and we'll have seen that our strategy is also working. And also the strategy around the transferring of farms to qualifying beneficiaries also entices these beneficiaries to ensure that they service the debt book, and so that they can then ultimately receive this land. Can you move to the next slide? That is just on the revenue. I'll just now this slide, Chair, will touch the progress on land reform, but also touch on whether we are adequately funded. And we're going to start with restitution. And if you look at between 22-23 and 24-25, we finalized about 1,448 claims. And you look at the cost there, it's sitting at about 6 billion. Then in over the medium term, we're planning to look at about 869 claims. This is, we're looking at about finalizing old order claims. We know that there were old order claims that have been lodged, and we have not yet started with the new order claims because there had been a court order in that aspect. With the old order, the claims that we state will remaining, the odd 5,200 or so claims, big cases, and they would require a massive injection of cash. We're projecting that we did a backlog strategy on the outstanding claims, old order claims, and it says that we need about 56 billion to finalize these claims because these are big community claims. They require massive budget to reduce. And you look at how much we've been funded at 3 billion maximum a year, or between 2 and 3 billion that we get from restitution side. It is not possible to finalize these old order claims at the rate at which we are. But also that there's a big dependencies there, that to be able to even have a massive increase now on this budget would have to have a massive increase on human resource capability, because now capacity within human resource, within restitution, in order to deal with this old order claims, is not enough. Also, we did some work around this. Restitution is saying also to just finalize the capacity required over the years is going to cost the government a lot of billions again to just also get in the capacity part. So that is where we are with regard to restitution. And you'll see for 26-27 for restitution, we're planning to settle about 307 land claims with a household budget of about 2.6 billion. Can you go to the next slide? The next slide is just also looking at the progress with restitution, with redistribution, which is mainly dealt with within the entity agricultural and holding account. ALA, since inception, has a portfolio of about 5,000 odd properties, which is land parcels, with approximately about 1,983 farms. This farms increases as when we buy. The figure might have increased now. Hence, we're saying approximately. And the hectares that are sitting in that in the portfolio, 2.4 million hectares currently sitting, and that would have excluded those that we've already disposed to beneficiaries. We estimate with the estimated value of 12.6 billion. So we've got a balance sheet of about 12.6 billion within the agricultural trading and holding account. We've supported approximately 840 farms with recap 523. We had a recapitalization development program that was stopped because it had inherent challenges also, because money were transferred into beneficiaries' bank account, and in some instances these beneficiaries have not accounted what they've done with the money. We've changed the model to land development support, where we've partnered with commodity organizations as well as the financial banks. So the tripartite that we've created is to ensure that we're creating an ecosystem that will handhold all these beneficiaries to ensure that the money is used accordingly, and then we reach an ultimate goal of commercialization. And that program, we started in the last 5 years. We're sitting with about 317 farms that we have supported. Over the 5-year target, we've planned to redistribute about 200,000 hectares, meaning we would want to acquire 200,000 additional hectares. Looking at the budget that I've indicated there on land acquisition, we approximately currently within this portfolio, we did an assessment on the portfolio in terms of its capabilities of reaching its production capabilities, because these are agricultural farms. And we found that about 1,134 of this farm have got a very high value return on investment if we were to make it productive. That's why we then the LDS support was then invented. Approximately out of that assessment, 814 still needs to be dealt with, and we're estimating that we require about 6.3 billion of this to finalize. So the table there, it's just showing the hectares that we did between 22, 23, 24, and what budget it costed us, and what we would be spending over the years. Especially also note that the budget, the cost of the land is also dependent on also a number of things. Some provinces land is cheaper, other provinces is expensive, and so forth. We're planning still to dispose some of these hectares to beneficiaries, as well as supporting beneficiaries. In 22-23, we did 163, and now we do from 26-27, we're planning 84 of those. And also the cost is driven by a detailed farm assessment that the commodity organization go and do to see if we're to make it commercial, what do we need to unlock. Can you go to the next slide? The next slide would be on tenure reform. On tenure reform, we've got a challenge of labor tenants applications that were lodged. From those applications, approximately about 20,000 of them were lodged. We managed to settle about 11,000 or finalize 11,000 of those claims. And we have got an outstanding target of 8,000 that are still outstanding. We've got budgetary pressures in this space. Firstly, we've got the CPA office that were then introduced through the Amendment Act around the CPAs, that we need to beef up that office. We also have got issues around capacity to at least to settle this claim. This claims within the tenure reform have got a lot of dependencies in. Some of these claims would have to be settled through courts because there would be disputes, and some would have to be settled without court process. So there's a lot of human capability and capacity that we require to be able to deal with and settle these claims that has got to do with labor tenants. Also in this space, there is the master of that is dealing with of High Court that is within the department, as working with the department to ensure that we unlock and finalize this 8,957 outstanding claims for for tenure for security of tenure. And the main cost driver there, you would see that we do buy land in some instances, and when we buy land, we buy both for farm dwellers as well as labor tenants, and that is the budget on land acquisition for the next financial, what we've spent and what we're projecting over the MTF. Can you move to the next slide? Oh, so that is my last slide, Chair. Thank you so much. I think in conclusion, Chair, the capacity or the challenges within land reform and expediting land reform requires a serious injection of finances. But as much as would want finances for to deal with the actually delivering the land, you also need equal capacity to deal with get human resource capacity, because we wouldn't want to get to a point where we've got massive injection on the other and we don't get enough capacity to make sure that we deal with this, especially dealing with old order claims, both from restitution as well as what is sitting in tenure reform, as well as also dealing with massively unlocking the economic potential of the agricultural land that we've already redistributed to these beneficiaries. Because at the end of the day, these beneficiaries would want to say we've got title to the land, but also that the land is yielding in some form of economic pressure, easing some form of economic pressure and improving their livelihood. Thank you so much, Chair. I submit. Thank you.
Thank you. I don't know if the acting DDG wants to make any closing remarks in the light of that.
Chair, thank you. Thank you, Chair. No, I think the CFO has completed the presentation, and we would then stand by for questions. Thank you.
Thank you kindly. Let me recognize members who would like to ask questions. I suppose just before we go, acting DDG, I want to understand the split between the two departments. What has been its own impact on A, cost of employees, but B, operational efficiency? Are you of the complete view that separating agriculture and land review and this particular department has served you better or worse? Just because I'm trying to understand the interrelations in programs. So maybe just as members are putting up their hands for questions, you can clarify that point for me. Because it's going to be important when we think about rationalization of departments and how in the end they work. But let me recognize Honorable Kamede, Honorable Mwali.
My hand is up. My hand is up, Chair Mkonto.
All right, Honorable Mkonto and then Honorable Talega Mazibuko. Let's begin with Honorable Gamete.
Sorry, Chair, did you see my hand as well?
Yes, Honorable Bateman. I did mention your name, I think, earlier on. So we will proceed from there. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. Greetings to all members of the Portfolio Committee and also our support staff, and also greetings to the Department of Land Reform and Rural Development. And thanks for the presentation. The Department of Land Reform and Rural Development is clearly grappling with the complex administrative friction of organizational restructuring following the national micro-organizing of government process. While it is commendable that the department has maintained 90% budget expenditure rate for core programs in the 2024-2025 financial year, the 720 million rands underspend underscores deeply entrenched structural vulnerabilities. This variance is primarily driven by operational bottlenecks, changing payment systems, and contractor inefficiencies within land claim settlement and rural infrastructure projects. Furthermore, Chairperson, the operational stability of its trending entities is severely compromised by a glaring misalignment between policy intent and execution capacity. For instance, Chairperson, the agricultural land holding account suffers from a notable 44% decline in lease revenue collection, driven both by the internal, human resources shortages and external capacity constraint faced by beneficiaries. This increase, this actually creates a regressing loop. The department struggles to enforce lease compliance or provide adequate post-settlement support, which in turn hinders the agricultural productivity of the allocated land and prevents beneficiaries from generating the revenue needed to service their lease debt. Chairperson, my question, given that human resource capacity constraints have been explicitly identified primary bottleneck strategy, which requires 56 billion rands, and the implementation of what you call agricultural land holding account revenue improvement phases. What concrete realistic milestone has the accounting officer established to bridge the staffing and skill deficit during 2026-2027 structural finalization process without being escalating the compensation of employees' budget? Chairperson, I think it is imperative that we implement an ecosystem-driven support before enforcement model for the agricultural land holding account beneficiaries. The department should also actively pivot away from relying solely on state personnel to monitor lease and also provide technical support. It is recommended that the Department of Land Reform and Rural Development should also formalize and accelerate its planning annual collaboration with agricultural commodity organizations and private. By utilizing these external stakeholders to manage the land development support grant and deliver technical mentorship, the department can offload immediate operational pressures from its constrained internal staff. This ecosystem approach should be tied directly to phased title deed transfer mechanisms. Beneficiaries who meet productivity benchmark through private sector partnerships can fast track their transition from leasehold to full land ownership, effectively shrinking agricultural land holding accounts, long-term property management liabilities, and debt book. Thank you very much, Chairperson. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Kamete. May I then recognize Honorable Mwali? Then we'll move to Honorable Mkonto Bateman, then Galega Mazubugu.
Chairperson, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. We are just struggling to see you.
No, I'm at the airport, so I won't be able to.
No,
But can you hear? Chair?
I can verify that it is you. You can proceed. Yes,
Okay,
we can
thank
hear
you so much. Thank you so much, Chairperson. I think I'll write other questions down. Really, Chair, this speaks to the priorities of this country. Where you put money where your priorities are. So this department, land institution, has been faced with a huge backlog of land claims.
Honorable Mwali, I don't want to disrupt you, but maybe it might be my problem, but I'm hearing another program in the background.
Okay, no, Chair, what I'll do is I'll put down my questions. Thank you.
Sorry, Honorable Mwali, I'm unclear what you're wanting to do.
I'll write my questions down.
Okay, and then we'll take it from there. Let me recognize Honorable Mkonto.
Thank you, Chair, for the opportunity. Good morning to you, Chair, honorable members, our guests, and our staff. Chair, though I did not get exactly what intervention is being required by this department from the Standing Committee of Appropriations, because they have alluded themselves to the fact that they underspent in some line items, but then there are very pertinent line items that need a budget to be increased. Another, my question, Chair, will be on the CPAs. The biggest problem we have, Chair, with this department is CPA dysfunctionality. We understand the budget that they put aside and ultimately spend on settlements and land restitution and so forth. But then, Chair, a very low percentage of CPAs that are functional. So my question is, after the transfers are done, many CPAs are complaining that the previous owners or the sellers, they don't transfer the business to them. Like they don't show them that, oh, okay, this farm has been doing export through this company. We've been exporting to this country and that one. And here are the details of what the farm has been doing in as far as business is concerned. They are given just land and ultimately don't know what to do with it. And we come as members of parliament and accuse them of being not capable of sustaining the productivity of those farms. What is the department doing to make sure that the land that has been claimed by specifically CPAs do sustain productivity? We have a challenge of food security in the country. If this continues like that, we will end up having a food crisis in this country, because more and more farms are being claimed, settlements are done, but ultimately they become white elephants. Is there any return on investment in these land claims that are being settled, specifically on behalf of the CPA? Is there any turnaround strategy that the department have to make sure that these CPAs are functional? Are they being capacitated? And according to them, what is it that they have identified as a challenge in resulting to CPAs not being functional? Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Mkhonto. Let me recognize Honorable Bateman.
Thanks very much, Honourable Chair, and greetings, honourable members, and greetings also to the, I don't know if it's DG or acting DG and all the other DDGs present and everybody else on the platform today. Is there a high-level dashboard that the department maintains that gives an overall big picture status of the progress of land reform and how we're doing as a country in terms of land reform? It occurs to me that to have some sort of simple, visible, graphical interface where the members of the public and obviously there's a lot of interest and concern around land reform generally. And there's some key metrics I imagine that would be important for us to assess how well we are doing as a country on this. And so I'm asking if there's any kind of dashboard that's maintained by the department that gives us a visual picture with the key statistics of what we've accomplished in 30 years and where we still need to go, what we're still trying to achieve. Secondly, caught my attention that the administration budget is 2.1 billion out of a total budget of 10.3 billion, which is over 20%. And I'm expecting more in the region of 10 to 15%. So to be over 20% on administration seems quite on the high side, or excessive perhaps. Includes 693 million on office accommodation, 216 million on financial management services, and 480 million on corporate support services. Have you considered whether there's opportunity to save money in this out of this administration budget in order to redirect towards areas that are more strategic in terms of the outputs of the department? And can you provide a breakdown of the properties, how much is spent on each property? This would be for probably after the meeting, unless you've got it to hand. And also an analysis of the other costs linked to headcounts and what the services are that each of these functions are fulfilling. Then thirdly, there have been SIU investigations which revealed weak governance, maladministration, and fraudulent land claims that involve departmental officials. Has the department acted against all the officials that the SIU implicated in fraudulent transactions? And I'd like to really have a full answer here in respect of each official, what happened in terms of HR discipline, and also what's happened in terms of the criminal actions taken, and also civil actions taken to recover damages. So again, you could speak to that, but also if you could provide a full written answer. And then I think this point about accessing vacant, unused, and underutilized state land is a key one. How much is allocated towards that? And does the department have an accurate register of vacant, unused, and underused state land? And are there any legal impediments to to fast tracking and improving the accessing of this underused, vacant or unused state land. And then lastly, could you give us the value, the book value of the leasing debt? I saw numbers that you provided for recoveries, but not money, not numbers for how much the actual debt is, or what is owed in total to the department. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Honorable Bateman. Honorable Gallagher Mazibuko.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. Good morning to yourself, Dr. Maimane, and good morning to honorable members and the members from the land bank. Chair, with regard to the current allocation from the 27 farmers who will benefit from support for production, what is the total value of production that is envisaged from this support? And with the result of the land acquisition program, as a total of the land surface of the country, what percentage of land can be acquired by the current budget allocation? And Chair, is it adequate to increase access to land? What is the size of land in the 8,957 outstanding claims? And what time horizon can lead to the finalization? And my other question, Chair, has the department assessed the implications of the amended Appropriation Act, which has been signed and approved by Parliament? And what parameters exist to optimize the allocated funds through a relatively lower cost of acquisition of land and situations of nil compensation? How does the entity then work with Land Bank, DFIs, provincial departments, and other financial institutions to support beneficiaries to increase the productivity of land? And Chair, do we have a cogent and coherent strategy of coordinating efforts of land reform and support by state institutions supporting the agriculture and land acquisition sector, such as public works? And my last question, Chair, is on monitoring mechanism. We are told, Chair, that procurement plans will be monitored through the department budget forum and quarterly performance meetings. What early warning triggers are built into this monitoring framework to flag infrastructure tenders that are falling behind schedule before the end of financial year, so that we are not reactive but proactive in our monitoring mechanism? Because without monitoring, Chair, all what has been presented here will just be a futile exercise. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable Gallagher Mazibuko. And then lastly, Honorable Skete.
No, thank you, Chair. Let me also welcome the presentation. I just have a few questions, Chair, which I want to ask. The first one, Chair, will be what is the progress of dealing with the shortcomings of the security of tenure of land in communal areas? And what impact does it have on rural development? My second question, Chair, will be how many officials are facing consequence management and what type of sanctions were imposed, such as financial losses or non-compliance with the supply chain management? And my next question, Chair, will be with regard to the debt collection strategy. The best method is to support the productivity of assets. How does the strategy factor in the ability to support the production of an indebted beneficiary, and how much is allocated for this phase of providing technical support and financial support? And my last question, Chair, will be, we welcome claims finalized, but what is the land claim backlog and what percentage of land does it cover? So that is the questions which I want to ask, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. And then acting DDG, whilst there have been a number of questions from members, I do think the one theme that I want to understand is the legislative reform. I think Honorable Gallagher Mazibuko touched on that question to talk about not only the amendment that's been put forward, what are its implications to you? So that's one aspect. And then I note on your presentation, in terms of the youth of community workers, I think it's a youth program. I want to understand how is that linked fundamentally to the presidential employment stimulus? How do those two things relate to one another if that program is in place? Apropos my earlier question, the Department of Agriculture linked to the department, to this particular department, what has the separation meant? I note in your presentation, you speak at length about farming and farm support as a line item in this current financial year. Is that not a duplication of function? I just want to get clarity on these things so that I really follow what the split has meant. Our overall view must be to do the exercise about the rationalization of government, but also the implementation of TARS. So along with that, some of these duplications that occur across multiple departments, I want to understand if this is not one or another. I get the impression, CFO, you are saying, to quote young people, the more money you come across, the more problems you'll solve, if I follow what you are saying. Is the only limitation in terms of being able to get through land restitution a financial one? If that is it, then let me understand that, help me understand that better. And it's consistent with the question that was asked by one of my other colleagues, who said there have been some overvaluation of particular farms, which hypes the pricing, which impacts the department's budget on one level. On another level, that over-evaluation has been driven by acts of corruption. So you end up with overinflation, but then, money goes into nefarious acts. The third aspect is that often you find that the community that is intended beneficiaries don't always have the skills, competence to be able to deliver against it. So how does that component resolve this particular issue? And then my last question, and I have to preface it. I had a meeting with the Ingonyama Trust. They raised the aspect of provincialization of board members and appointments, that the king needed to have proviso in being able to do that. And equally so, I note you've allocated a budget incrementally 25 million and 26 million over the medium term. Can you give clarity as to what, from your perspective, and I want to say this because that's why I prefaced it by saying I met the trust and the prince in this regard. They are clear about what their job is. I want to understand, if you said to me you are giving 24 million to the Ngonyama Trust, whilst I appreciated the parts from the settlement that took place in 1994 between President Mandela and the then king, what is this money for? What is it used for? What does it deliver? And if Bakhatla, that is part of my lineage, were to make a decision to establish a trust, what is the program around that? And how does the department then manage the conflict that could arise relative to saying you favored the Ngonyama Trust, but what if another clan wanted to create its own trusteeship? What would then happen? What would be the appropriation? So I just want to understand the rand value and its particular purpose for it. I'm not asking for anything. I'm merely understanding what your department's understanding of the fund is designed for, given the fact that we've got many traditional authorities across the country. So those are the broadness of my questions. I would ask a cheeky one, which is to say, when does the acting DDG become DG, or when do we, as we are now starting to see a trend across many departments, eventually we call them Hollywood, I think, of as a portfolio committee or as a standing committee of the departments that we've seen in the recent while, I can't remember when last I saw a permanently appointed DG, other than, I see many acting ones in many capacities, whether it be health, whether it be this particular department, whether it be social development, as we saw. So when do we regularize these appointments? Because this notion of acting DGs is simply unsustainable. It tells me something about the functioning or the actual dysfunctioning of government. So let me get those respective responses.
Thank you, Chair. Let me start with, if you don't mind, I'm just going to leave my camera off. Let me start with the, I suppose, easier one. When does Bollywood end? Chair, the Minister and the Ministers have indeed, for the DG post, shortlisted, they've interviewed, and there is a submission on the way to Cabinet. Then all the other posts have also been advertised in the department. The accounting officer, the CFO post has been advertised. The DG Corporate Services has been advertised, and so we've done a full advertising of all the priority posts. So those are all underway. There was a small delay with we advertised, I think we've got 78 posts in the DDG Corporate Services. Mr. Lubongela acting is online. He can also come in. We've advertised 78 posts. Many of the posts were already advertised early on after the demerger. Unfortunately, we were of the impression that being a demerged department, we could actually utilize the employment equity targets of the old department, Dallard. Under legal opinion, it was found that we shouldn't do that, and we should then go to and get the necessary approvals, which we've subsequently done. And now we in earnest, I think as from February or March, late March, we were indeed going ahead with the shortlisting and the interviews that need to happen. I think the important part there is that these take time, especially the senior management ones, to get diaries aligned by various of the ministers and the director generals, etc., to sit on these panels. But it is going. The 78 posts that are out are currently priority posts. I think we have to also very carefully align this with the fact, and I think it talks to maybe your first question about this split or this demerger. Was it a good thing that government did? Well, we worked together for, I think it was 2 terms as the Department of Agriculture, Land Reform and Rural Development. The problem with the NMOG was essentially that it didn't allow for the creation of new positions. So what happened is 2 departments were just basically split. If you had a CIO, for instance, in the Department of Agriculture, Land Reform and Rural Development, that CIO post through the NMOG process was said, all right, the post will go to agriculture. Somehow it was decided, and agriculture got the CIO, and the department got left with a director that had to run operations. The same happened, with our Chief Risk Officer. The same happened with our Chief Director Supply Chain. The same happened, with a number of posts where we, as the larger department, there was this agreement through NMOG that it'd be a 60-40 split. I believe it should have been a 70-30 split, including budget. As you know, the major contention that's in the news and in all the committees, the portfolio committees at the moment, is the CEDs, or Enterprise Development Team, that currently lies with the Department of Agriculture. This team were a central part of the Department of Agriculture, Land Reform and Rural Development. On the demerger, the function was sent through NMOG and the process to the Department of Agriculture, those 200 staff members, and I'm not saying all 200 of them want to return, but the majority of them want to return to the department, and there's currently a bargaining council case on this matter. And the question is at that level right now. Traditionally, that function did reside within the rural enterprise and industrial, and it was really a social mobilization component that worked in communities under the CRDP program in the early years of the department, as it was when it was rural development and land reform. And these officials obviously want to return. Now, there's some discussion that is indicating, and I think the DG of Agriculture also indicated he's happy to give back the staff that want to return with their COE. Now, I think the problem with just giving COE is that would be giving back a large number of staff without travel, subsistence, and all the things that go along with that. And it would really put further constraint on the department. So for now, the department's view on that matter is that the CED staff are with the Department of Agriculture, where the function lies. And if there's a change, then that function should be brought back to the department with its budget. And it was, I think the budget was around 600 million rand for the work that they did, as well as the staff. Just COE wouldn't make the kind of difference. So let me go then directly, maybe, Chair, to your question, because that I think would help. I think your question was, what has been the impact of the split between agriculture and land reform on compensation of employees, operational costs, and operational efficiency? And your further question was, has the separation served the department better or worse? Chairperson, the separation, obviously, as I said, followed this NMOG government process. And in the presentation, we merely represent the facts that indicate that the establishment of the separate departmental configurations required transitional organizational adjustments, including the redistribution of this administrative capacity and the support capacity between the two departments. We also indicated that from the compensation of employees perspective, Program 1 had been split on that 60-40 basis that I mentioned to you, and between the two departments. And this created these operational implications because administrative capacity, systems, and support functions had to be reconfigured. And we're currently busy finalizing, and we hope to be done by the end of Q3, already by the adjustment estimate time. We would like to have the structure in such a position that we could give it to National Treasury for costing purposes for the next financial year to start in earnest. We've appointed a service provider to assist us, and on the 1st and the 2nd of June, we are indeed having this workshop with the service provider, all the branches, to get the realigned fit-for-purpose structure in place. And obviously, the intention is to strengthen institutional alignment, improve the coordination, and ensure that the department is structured for its current mandate. And this is the interesting question, and I've heard this come up from all the members. Agriculture remains vitally important to the tenants, the lessees, the communities, the traditional authorities in our area that we look after. Do we know, I think Honourable Bateman asked the question, do we know spatially where these properties are? Yes, sir, we do. I'm tempted to put up share my screen and make that slide available, but I'll get to there when I answer the Honourable Bateman's question. So yes, there are dashboards. We currently use them for internal purposes, for planning, etc. So I think, Chairperson, in all fairness and honesty, the department continues to work through the transition. We're currently very busy with the annual financial statements still that carry through a lot of the last 4 administrations work that obviously come through the financial statements of the department, and we're busy cleaning those. I don't think my acting CFO sleeps much anymore, but we're busy working on that with very clear methodologies on how to account. But ultimately, we were the larger department, so we remain responsible for those audit outcomes for the next 2 years in terms of the AGSA requirements. Chair, and then I just want to maybe, while we're on the Ingonyama Trust part of the discussion, I think as you've said, you've spoken to the Prince, you've spoken to the Ingonyama Trust. The Ingonyama Trust was established, firstly, I think, through an act of Parliament. So it was established at a time, as you rightfully noted, in 1994, when the negotiations were at a critical point in the country's history, and the funding that's there over the medium term was really funding that was created not to run the trust, but to run the secretariat of the trust. So the trust and the act has 2 parts. The first part is the board, and I think we've noticed the issues of the board in the media. But then there's the other part, and this is the administration. So that money largely goes like clockwork for the paying of salaries, of the paying of buildings, of the paying of, and there was a time now in the recent past when, for instance, the bank accounts due to the interdict that was brought by the trust against the minister's dissolving of the board, when in fact the bank account was, for instance, frozen by the banking supplier of their choice, and that really did negatively affect the salaries of everybody involved in the trust. So yes, the funding is there, and it's an act of government. So whether other communities can form trusts, I'm sure they can form trusts. I don't think there's anything for any community not to form a trust. However, whether it's made through an act of government is a different matter. So the secretariat also, especially when it was established, and this is also long before my time, not because I'm a young person, but just before I arrived at the department, the funding or the establishment was done really through the department. So you'll notice if you read the regulations, it will, for instance, say that the secretariat, and therefore is appointed either by the Director General of the department, or it's appointed by the board in consultation. I think it's section 3G, or it's appointed by the board in consultation with the Director General. So this is how that relationship works. I think there's other, you'll see also on the presentation, there's the South African Geomatics Council, there's a South African Council for Planners that also get some funding that gets released based on performance and based on reports that are submitted to the department, and then we release those funds in tranches over the year to the various institutions. I suppose the idea would be that maybe the Ingonyama Trust should be self-funding, like, for instance, the deeds account, which works very well on this. They don't make profit, but they generate all their own income to pay salaries, buildings, etc., etc. So the deeds is probably a very good example, and therefore you'll always see this statement made, and obviously my DDGs are on board, and they can come in before we move to the next if they want to comment on this specific question. But the reason why, for instance, you will often hear that, for instance, if Human Settlements wants all the deeds information, they don't just get a dump and get all the deeds information, they have to pay for it. And the reason that they pay for it is the fact that that's the only income that the deeds, if we start giving all the information away for free for the deeds, then in fact it doesn't become self-funding anymore. It messes with the operation model. So there are these exceptions that are made, but most departments pay, whether it be the Public Service Commission, whether it be DPSA, whether it be Human Settlements, Home Affairs, whoever wants deeds information, they pay. The only time when we can zero rate that is really when it's for internal use of the department. But the Chief Registrar of Deeds is online. So, Chairperson, yes, that is. I would like to think that is question one on your side dealt with, and maybe I should allow the following DDGs to come in. I'd like to maybe DDG Lupongela to talk to the realignment process and the process of adverts and where we currently stand. I would like to talk to DDG Ndove, who's online, who deals with the not with the with the or tranches that he pays. And then we can also, I don't know if the acting CFO would like to come back, and possibly also the Chief Registrar of Deeds, because I have spoken in some length to the work of the registrar. And then after that, I will move on to Honourable Gamende's question and answer that. Thank you, Chair. DDG.
Can I just highlight, just as you hand over to other members, that there's a set of questions in the chat that will need to also be responded to by Honourable Mwali. So I'm just flagging that with you. Please.
Okay. Ms. Lupongela, if you're online, can you just start with those two items, and then I'll move through the list. Thank you.
Thank you, DG. Sorry. Good morning, Chairperson. Good morning, honorable members of SCOA, and extension of the greetings to my colleagues, including the Director General. Mine will attend to the consequence management question that was posed. The SIU referrals, I guess my colleague will also come in if I have left anything on that one. Then the last part will be the realignment of the department. Perhaps just to add on the vacant posts of the department, the total number of the vacant posts in the department after the demerging with the Department of Agriculture is 256. Out of that, there were 80, not 78 acting DG, there were 80 posts that were prioritized. I guess the two ones that you omitted are the ones for the special master. So, which then makes 80 positions vacant and funded posts that are advertised. That includes the SMS members, that is your DG, DDG's supply chain, and Chief Director Monitoring and Evaluation, and other levels. So those are the posts that have been advertised, 80, and we are in a process of filling that, filling all of them. And of course, you have touched on what were the delays after the demerger of those 80 positions. Those were employment-related prescriptions, which now have been resolved. Hence, we are then continuing with the filling of the vacant advertised positions. The rest of the positions that are not included they will be then taken care of in the next financial year, and also through the process of realignment of the department in line with the mandate as given after the demerger of the department. Chairperson, we are also currently busy with the realignment of the department in line with what you correctly referred to, Section 25 of the Constitution, in as far as the mandate of our department, including rural development. And that project has been started from the 28th of April. The intention is to complete it by the 30th of October. So it's a 6-month project. It's run both by a service provider and in partnership with support services of the department. So we are busy with that realignment so as to ensure that the mandate of the department as per constitutional expectation, or rather in line with the Constitution, is actually implemented. I may as well also indicate that, which I think is the point that was raised by Honorable Gamede, the staffing and upskilling of employees. Amongst the things that is being done through the realignment of the department, the project itself, will also look at job. We'll also look at the skilling, job evaluation, skilling, training and development, so as to upskill the officials in order to ensure that we make use of internal capacity. Because amongst the things that we are implementing through our APP, of course, is digitalization and modernization of the department in the context of improving the capacity and the capability of the state. So hence the upskilling becomes also very, very critical and important. So I thought, let me just emphasize that part in as far as realignment, skilling and development of the staff. And of course, what is also expected out of that project will be the cost analysis, that is the implication from implication in as far as COE, and that is what will also be looked at through this particular project one is referring to. Then this takes me to the question that was raised by Honorable Bateman. Of course, I must preface this by saying one has taken evidence that is provided by the member that perhaps we can also provide a written answer so as to substantiate in my answer. The SIU matters, the report that was made, or the presentation that was made to our portfolio committee, that is Land Reform and some of the proclamations, there are old proclamation, and of course there is one that is operational on land reform that was amended. Out of those matters, most of the referrals, the officials, most of them had already left the department when those proclamations were completed. Nevertheless, the referrals that came for consequence management given those that are still within the department, are 9 matters or cases. Out of the 9 cases, 3 officials, one unfortunately passed on, one retired, and then the last one resigned even before the matter was finalized. So at our disposal, at this point in time, we are attending to 6 matters out of the 9. That is consequence management as a result of referrals from SIU. And of course, there are 2 matters that we collectively with SIU are in court. In fact, SIU is leading that one. We are providing legal support to SIU. That the matter is at the level of a tribunal, SIU tribunal. So there is a good working relationship between the department, special investigation unit, including asset forfeiture unit, and the Hawks above all. And that then takes me to the consequence management as a result of various untoward activities, be it wasteful and irregular expenditures. We had when we were separating, because when the 2 departments were splitting, so each department had to take over matters that were, if officials were remaining with us or moving to agriculture, agriculture had to take all the cases that are related to officials under them. So we remain as a Department of Land Reform and Rural Development with 193 cases. Out of that 193 cases, 88 are closed. And of course, currently we are handling 105. And out of that 105, they are in various stages. I may as well just indicate that 34 out of that is actually, now we are busy with the hearing. So without boring the members and of the committee, honorable members, so that is basically the status quo in as far as consequence management. And of course, the demerger had its own disadvantages. We had to realign in terms of consequence management and ensure that there's stabilization, etc. And after that, now we can confidently say, as the management of the department, we are in total control of the consequence management with all its limitation, of course. So that is the status quo thus far. I hope that Acting DG dispose of the matters that are related to corporate support services. If not, you will provide guidance and I'll come back. Thank you, Honorable Chair and the honorable members.
Thank you, Mr. Lupongela. Next, I would ask that the CFO just respond, and then DDG Terry Ndove, who's the DDG for Land Redistribution and Tenure Reform. CFO.
Thank you, DG, and thank you, honorable members. Maybe just to start with, Honorable Chair indicated that you were reading my presentation as more money, more problems. Maybe let me start from there. The department is one of those complex department, and the complexity of it comes also with the fact that we're dealing with beneficiaries that are historically disadvantaged. So the amount of hand-holding and assisting beneficiaries and creating the ecosystem I think one of the honorable members indicated that the best solution is that you then create this ecosystem of support that you then able to ensure that the beneficiaries do what they need to do, and we don't create more structural challenges later in the economy, I think food security and so forth. What I was basically saying, that we need to find a way of balancing the financial and the human resource capability and looking at the external environment. And that balancing act would require, it's a bit technical because then it requires all stakeholders and including, and one of the question was, how do we then coordinate and correlate with all other spheres of government, whether it be local government, whether it be other department, and basically what I'm saying is with the 26-27 appropriation of 10.3 billion, when we were having bilaterals with National Treasury, as a department, we didn't say give us additional more money. But what we're saying is, if we can be able to get the structural challenges correct, then increase our budget. One of the things that we, for instance, for the commission would have proposed that we need to be relooking at certain elements within the business process to be taken out through entities. Like you get commission as an entity, you get agricultural and holding account as an entity, and have land reform as a department operating as a policy decision department. And that will then unlock and ensure that we then move and intervene systematically in addressing the challenges that we have. So with the 10.3 billion budget allocation, we're saying for the 26-27 appropriation, we did accept when we had the discussion with National Treasury. But what we're saying is, with the structural reforms that we want to do in the department, we then ultimately would want to have an increase of the budget, because land reform, according to us, is underfunded currently. If you look at the backlog that we're sitting with from tenure reform, redistribution, and as well as restitution, we are seriously under but funded. Then there was more questions around I think DG covered the issues of the dashboards, and I think I'm going to touch the one around administration, the 20% plus budget percentage on the budget on administration, a bit high. The expectation between 10 to 15 is more reasonable. And the question was, do we have is there an opportunity to sort of bring down the numbers a bit in that program? And my answer to this question is that yes, I think there is, because of the work that DG Lipungela has just indicated. DG Lipungela has just indicated around the realignment process. How the department is currently configured is, we are a national competency, meaning that National Department of Rural Development, Land Reform and Rural Development is the national department. But what we do in the province, because we have to have footprints in each and every province, we operate with provincial shared service centers. So each and every province has got regions, districts. In some instances, KZN will have regions and so forth. And that service delivery model, that with the fit for purpose that will then bring about, will be able to see to what extent would we bring down the costs. And I think DG Lipungela actually indicated that the complexity around keeping the COE in check, with introduction of things like improving some of the processes that we could automate through the automation process project that they're also running. So yeah, that would be the main driver, because what then happens is, every district, where there's regions, there's costs, there's accommodation costs, there's your normal contractual commitments, there's cleaning, there's all this, and that's how the hierarchy of the structure. And also in every district, there's district directors, and then in the provinces, you also, in the provincial centers, you've got also provincial heads. So that service delivery model will be able to give us a good indication in terms of whether we could drive that cost a bit down or not. Then there was a question around, I'm just going to touch on the ones that affects finances. around the book value of the debt book of ALA. We're sitting at about 904 million of the debt book. Is high. As I said, at the earlier years, it was increasing at a very alarming rate. And within that debt book, what we've done is that within the previous policies that have been in the department, we've used number of billing mechanism in some instances. When we started billing these beneficiaries when the trading entity started way back, I think 2010, 13, somewhere around there. We were using the market value, which is what PFMA say we need to bill at market value. We had to have discussions with National Treasury, take into account the complexity that I've indicated with regard to our beneficiaries and the fact that these properties, as much as there is some return, but they are kept for service delivery perspective, not necessarily for investment return, that we then check the rate at which we bill. And we then managed to then move away from the market value. We then introduced the productive value method mechanism, and also still it had its own complexity to a point where now the agreement or the approval we received from Treasury is that we're charging 1% of the land cost as what we bill, and all those regimes of the period then also drove the debt book a bit high. And I said, when we started to introduce 22, 23, embedding operations and normal financial processes together, that's when we started to seeing a bit of improvement. When you then bring in an ecosystem that then assists, and as well as the transfer of land to title, then it then gave a bit of an improvement on that space. Still, though, the improvement is very, very minimal. The next question on the production support, the value return on investment, and for the specific 27, Honorable Chair would provide in detail, as DDG Pungela said, in some instances, with the details would be put in writing. But just on a high level, with the Plus portfolio, we did an assessment because we wanted to understand with the revenue rising, revenue cost, rising property costs relating to raise and taxes, and also rising costs that these beneficiaries are not keeping with relation to other costs, water bills, and that also creates a burden to municipalities. With those challenges, we then went on a study to try to understand why is the program not delivering what it needs to deliver. And that's why when we now entered into redesigning land development support, we had to put in an ecosystem of putting community organizations. So we've partnered with community organization, we've partnered with the bank. The initial thinking, and I think one of the issue was how do we then interlink also with the Department of Agriculture as well as other private sector in the space, in funding the space of support and development. What we did is when we started the program, we engaged in Land Bank in terms of funding this area, and the challenge was sitting with, and the results was not good. The initial plan was that maybe we use the blended finance model with Land Bank, and then to ease up so that we can then speed up the production support. The overall support, including infrastructure and so forth. But the challenge is we're sitting with beneficiaries that are not able to handle the debt book of a loan because of challenges that we're currently having, and that's why bringing them on the land development, and when some of them when they upscale, when we DALRAT, they were able to then also access a blended finance mechanism like a job fund or a pure blended finance, either from Land Bank, in trying to address the problem. But there is the assessment we did. It said with the portfolio that we have on Plus, there's a potential of a production value of over 3 billion annually of return, because that's how productive and good pieces of land the department were able to identify and buy, and that remains to be realized, because we're doing 27 on Plus, which is very minimal. But the exact figure in terms of how much value return on investments on the ones that we did, we will provide. There was a question that how, yes, there's procurement plan, what are the early triggers, what we do. So with the service delivery improvement plans that we've introduced in the department, what we do is we link quantitative and qualitative data into one. We look at data from branches and financial data in that plan, and we do a progress report. So we would link when do we need to deliver with the budget and its implementation, and in those programs, in those with those reporting, both operational and non-operational, operational and financial information are taken into account. So we're able to then early pick up if we've got projects that have got challenges that we can then unlock and intervene. So that's how we're planning to early detect spending this budget. There was a question around limitations. What are our limitations? Our limitations are really only financial. And I think more than that, Honorable Chair, you've asked whether the losses are ultimate losses, because anything that is not used accordingly becomes losses. If there's overvaluation, overcompensation, and so forth, then creates a bit of a hole in the fiscus. With the introduction of OVG, and then our analysis says that because OVG works on just and fair equitable compensation rather than pure market value, we've seen that the cost of land is going a bit is controllable compared to when OVG was not, Office of the Valuer General was not introduced. Our valuation reports are also audited by the Auditor General. What they do is they use other external valuers to then just look at our valuation and look at whether the cost that we're paying for land is reasonable or not reasonable. And so far with the audit, they've been doing it, I think the past 3-5 years or so, I think they've not come up with any adverse challenges with regards to that. I think the one for corruption, the DGF covered. Just lastly, on chair, with regard to our relation with agriculture, in terms of agricultural land holding account, you look at the trading entity has been placed in the Department of Land Reform and Rural Development, and that trading entity administers agricultural land. And you've got also within the restitution space different form of entities, different form of land use that are handled by the department. We can buy land for industrialization, buy land. So we settle land for all other various means. That is why post-settlement and support program in the land reform the department is still in the department, because from a legislative perspective, the Agricultural Land Holding Account, as well as post-settlement within the Restitution Act and Tenure Act, is then embedded within the legislation, whether it's Restitution Provision of Land Assistance Act, as well as tenure, whether it's Labor Tenants Act and so forth. That clause provision around post-settlement support, it is there where we need to then support them financially. But there is that interlinkages in terms of the technical and all other support within the other department, not only Department of Agriculture, that the department needs to then just get it right, so that we can then holistically ensure that the land form beneficiaries, regardless of the use of the land, are all supported. Thank you, Chair. Over to you, the acting chief.
Thank you, Chair. I see what my DDGs are doing. They're just answering all the questions, but I'll summarize at the end then. I wanted DDG Ndove, please, to come in. One of the areas that I think he needs to talk to also while he's at it is on the CPA matters. I will also speak to that, but let them first, because I see they're answering questions across the board. I will summarize at the end then and answer those unanswered ones. Thanks. DDG Ndove, are you online? Okay. If not, Chair, then I think I'll just continue. The next question, I don't know where the DDG is right now. Maybe he's has an interruption in his connection. Chair, may I proceed? I want to actually give over to the Chief Land Claims Commissioner.
Yeah, please, if you can. I'm also
Okay.
keeping
Thank you.
tight interest on the time, so let's keep going. Yeah.
Good afternoon, good morning still, to the Honorable Chair and the members. My name is Nomfundo Ndloko. I am the Chief Land Claims Commissioner. I will attempt to answer the questions that have been raised insofar as they relate to the Commission on Restitution of Land Rights. If you will allow me, Chair, to put the camera off.
That's fine. We can keep going.
Thank you, Chair. So I just want to just generally say that I think the questions that have been raised are important questions for the Commission on Restitution of Land Rights, especially around the progress that we are making in terms of dealing with the land claims in general. I think it's important for us, Chair, to register that the Commission has a project called Project Guyasa, where we were looking at the entire business case of the Commission, how we're structured, whether we are effective or not effective, and what interventions are needed in order for us to be able to be much more effective.
Hi, I'm not sure if it's me, but have we lost
Yes,
the present?
Yeah, you're gone.
Can I ask that some of the responses can be put together in writing? That would be helpful, especially for where there's technology failure. But if we can, acting DDG, proceed to the next responses.
Thank you, Chair. I will quickly then talk to the other areas while the CLCC gets back. I think Honorable Mwali, who put the questions in the chat, he was talking about the long outstanding land claims, the backlog of funding, corruption, SIU accountability. Also spoke to claims settled and the value of the farm ownership percentages and safeguards against corruption. So I think what we've partially answered here by DDG Lupongela was to talk to the SIU matters, the consequence management, the disciplinary matters, tribunal matters, the Hawk and SIU. What is in the presentation is the backlog, the claims finalized, and the settlement of claims. So I think the things that I really still need to respond to, and maybe around the Chief Land Claims Commissioner, was the exact outstanding claims, and she's now left the platform, so we'll answer that in the writing. Claims process and safeguards, anti-fraud controls, and verification systems. So for my side, that's left on Honorable Mwali is to say, what are we talking about the farm ownership percentages to be formally verified in writing? And I think that we will do on Honorable Mwali. Then on Honorable Gamede, I think the issues raised were around staff shortages, skill shortages, the COE sustainability, beneficiary support, commodity partnerships, ecosystem support, and productivity. And I think there, Mr. Lupongela already spoke to the upskilling, the training, the realignment, job evaluation, and internal capacity strengthening. And the CFO answered the questions on the ecosystem model, the commodity partnerships, the land bank engagement. She also spoke to the blended finance productivity constraints and the 3 billion productive potential. So here again, we needed some inputs from DDG Ndove. So I'll just speak to those, specifically on title transfer approach. Chair, this is where the major, if you're seeing there's unhappiness among farmers on our properties, the big issues are around why are we not getting moving leases to title? And this is we on the second week of June. I'm calling it my policy design sprint exercise, whereby we're looking at the land redistribution and tenure branch. We're sitting down under instruction of the minister, and we are looking at how we redesign policy to better suit and to speed up the lease to title process. There's a few things that hamper farmers at the moment. I've been on a number of roadshows myself down to KZN speaking to farmers. We've had farmers in the Western Cape at the budget speech recently. We had meetings with farmers. We've had meetings with farmers at the Rural Development Conference, and the message is the same. Unfortunately, access to financing is a problem for the majority of previously disadvantaged individuals that are farmers, and it might be in a bigger context in the country. The only way you get to a bank or a financial institution touching you is if you have the history of economic, what do you call it? Economic dispossession is real, and it still persists in the country. So bottom line, what do we do with a farmer that has to be paid up on their lease agreement in order to take title? Number one. Number two, when you look at the lease agreement, there's further requirements to take title. One, you shouldn't have transgressed the lease agreement. Two, you have to have productivity plans. Three, you have to look at not subletting. Four, you have to be paid up. So there's a whole lot of requirements that we impose on these, and it's not facilitating. There's another problem. Some farmers have been at this for 15 years, 17, 18 years. They've been farming. Yes, they are in arrears. Now, these arrears are very often caused by states of national disaster. For instance, the more recent one, the sale of cattle is prohibited in KZN. If you can't sell your produce, how do you pay the lease? If you can't, and COVID was the same. So many of these farmers that have come over the last 10 years have come into arrears generally because of these states of disaster. In Limpopo, you've got another thing, floods. In Mpumalanga, you've got floods. So we need to look at these in the policy, take them into account. We also need to look at the policy says that if you've got any outstanding debt where you've loaned money from Land Bank or you've got money from the government, specifically recap money, you have to have repaid that debt before you can get title. Now, the problem is here, these farmers most of them fall into that category where they've got no other financing options but to go for debt or go for grants that are issued by the state, whether it be the NEF or DTIC or small business or whatever the case may be. Now, imagine in a world where this is your only option. You spend all your time and money that you have at your availability identifying these grants, applying for these grants. When you apply for the grants, you often don't get the full amount because there's just not enough money to go around. So instead of getting the 8 million you asked for, the state will say, well, we've revised your business plan and we're giving you 3. So if we were going to buy you a small car, we're only going to give you a third of the car and see what you do with that. So these are the problems that our lessees, and I'm going to move away from farmers per se, because farming resides with the Department of Agriculture, but our lessees sit with these issues on their farms. So the question then is, how do we look at that policy and say, look, this is your blood, your sweat, your tears that you've put into this farm, and now all of a sudden we want to cancel your lease because you're not meeting the requirements of your lease. Although you've been here for 15 years, we're going to give this land to somebody else who's brand new in the system. I don't think this is fair. This is my personal view. I don't think we're achieving anything. We're not achieving land reform. So we need to look at the policy. We need to fix these things, and we need to expedite lease to title. Also, the fairness around, the timeframes. How long do you have to have been a leasee before you can take title? Chair, for me, those are critical critical issues on that, and unfortunately, we will put something in writing for the committee. Then, when we look to Honourable Makonto, the main issues here were the CPA dysfunctionality. Again, DDG Ndove not being on the line, but I can speak to CPAs. We've met all these CPAs throughout the country. We've also met with the traditional leaders that were invited to all these CPA meetings. We've seen the problems. I'm currently trying to negotiate with the National Skills Fund for training funding. I need to go externally. The amount is about estimated about 15,000 Rand per member. If there's 10 members of every CPA, and we've got, well, let me not put a number, but I know, I do know the number of CPAs in the country. It's skipping my mind right now. But as we go and we look at it, I'm looking at about 300 million Rand that I need for training. The CPAs, we have got an acting registrar of deeds, we've got an acting deputy registrar, and the problems that we are seeing are serious. We amended the bill to ensure better management of the CPAs, and I don't think we see that coming through over the last year or so that the amendment has been in place. We still see the CPAs running in a way that is very dysfunctional. When I say dysfunctional, there's a lot of infighting. For every CPA group, there's also a opposing group that are saying, no, this is not the legitimate CPA. The CPA is squandering our funds. There's cases, and in some cases, we even come to a point where the registrar is now being challenged in court not to go and hold meetings through court interdicts to ensure that, you know, these CPAs are what do we call these bodies? Juristic bodies, and they have rights, and they also interdict the department in not to interfere in their matters in many cases. So there are teething problems. The other problem is that we've had worked with the skeleton staff on this. Recently, the DDG Land Redistribution and Tenure Reform has allocated additional functions to staff in the provinces, as the CFO explained, talking to the district officers and the provincial officers that are at the coalface and at delivery of all these items. So that is a concern. It needs training. It needs better support. We also need to appoint a permanent registrar. Mediation becomes critically important. There's also many of the CPAs are pressured, what we can see, by groups that are keeping them off their land in the Northern Cape. Some of the CPAs are kept off their land by rogue groups that prevent them from even entering their gates or getting to their houses. And you know, you'd ask, you know, where's this coming from? And this is coming from like organized crime, if I could put it in a very blunt way, where people literally are after the resources on these lands, and keeping CPAs away from that land. So these are the realities on the ground. We've listened to these extensively, and there will be a CPA national forum after. Then on food security concerns, I think it's critical that agriculture be asked about food security. I mean, obviously, I think the CFO mentioned the size of the agricultural land holdings account, and the good soils that we've bought. But Section 25, if we go and look at it, and this is what Mr. Lubongela was alluding to also, and the CFO, is that as we look at the mandate of the Department of Land Reform and Rural Development, are we farmers? No. We have to look at access to land. And the CFO rightly indicated that when we look at land, we can buy land in any space for industrial purposes, for this and that. So that's part of the realignment process. Looking at what we do, to ignore the needs of our lessees would be definitely would be unjust. So what we're doing through the Rural Development Branch, DDG Moyo, and the acting DDG is Riada Fush is online. We're currently signing memorandums of cooperation with the Provincial Departments of Agriculture. It's been agreed on by our MINMEC and MINTEC processes. And these agreements are to look at how do we work with agriculture to support the farmers on our properties. And when I say our properties, I'm talking to traditional land, communal land, leased land, labor tenants, etc. The full range of people that we are supporting with access to land through the land reform program and through the restitution program. So Chairperson, that's where we are with that. Post-settlement failures, I think you could write a book on that. The question I think the honourable member said is, why do these farmers not hand over the farms correctly? We buy the farm, we have a handover report but again, I think farming is a very sensitive matter. You secure your markets based on finance, ability to deliver over time, personal relationship with these markets, etc. So there's a lot of work, I think, still to be done on that. Also experience. We've often heard in a number of reports on restitution that, we buy the farm, the community comes back, the farmers, the white farmer then returns to the farm to farm on a contract basis, and that in itself creates other problems on the ground where, the profits aren't shared equally, etc., etc. So it is about building back the black farming sector, to support them better, to support them through the grants that we have, to start looking at the land bank and other options around. And I think you're going to see also with the appointment, Chairperson and members of the on envoy for land and agriculture, Mr. Wandile Siklobo, that's been appointed by the president, that there's a lot of talk also in the media and on his post. He recently did a agri-review interview at NAMPO, and you will see there that there's a drive from the highest level also to look at how we can bring more of this agricultural land that's in the land holdings account back into production. And here again, we're talking the agency. You'll also see the communal land bill brings back the idea of a land reform agency to deal with the matters of bringing that land that we hold, that's agricultural land of very high potential, back into economic production. And that also then obviously help with that. So that's part of the return on investment and turnaround strategy. Okay, that's fine. And then Honourable Bateman, I think the public dashboard is what you asked for. I'm tempted to show it. Che, do you want me to quickly show you a dashboard we have, or do you have time for it or not? We can.
You can. We've got about five more minutes because yeah, we've covered a lot of extensive ground, and so one of the things I wanted to request is that some of their submissions can be sent in a written form. So yeah,
I'll do that. I see. I don't have permissions. I just want to do so under DDG Ndolwe, we keep, it's called the law land administration spatial dashboard. I'm going to try and I still don't have. It won't be able to. I don't want to share the link just on an open platform. It could go anywhere. So I would like to show it to you. I still don't have. Okay, now I have a co-hosting agreement. That's fine. Allow and find the correct screen here. Okay. Let me just quickly. Sorry, apologies for that. I just want to find my screen. Let me just share my desktop. What's open here? Is the screen visible? And we have this information. Chairperson, can you see well? So
yes, we can.
So these are the national statistics at the 26th of the 5th, 2026. The total hectares of the department on the far right is 11 million hectares. Then it gets broken down into plus, into restitution, into land reform, into the department's hectares, and then into CPAs, 3.2 million hectares. But what makes this tool quite useful is it's obviously, if I toggle at the bottom left here, I'm toggling the traditional areas, and you'll see it just turns green. I can zoom in now, and maybe the committee wants to say, which area would you like me to touch next? Which province? So I can just give you one demonstration of what's available. And we're busy linking this to deeds and to spatial planning, etc. Let's take the middle province, Free State. So we can zoom into the Free State. It gives you the boundary. But when I zoom in, let me just zoom to the Free State again. You'll see the number of hectares that is dullard land is 367. The plus total is 209. The restitution land is 250 hectares. And then when I start zooming in, you will notice here I can also see, I can obviously toggle the base maps, but I can also put on the traditional councils are on. I can put on the cadastre, and then you can start seeing the whole cadastral system of the province over these properties. So this property here, typically, if you look at our legend, these yellow properties are plus properties. The light green ones are restitution properties. The brown is dullard land. So this is how what we can see. I can also put on parent farms, and I can put on not registered piece of land. But you can see if I zoom in, it'll slowly open up more layers. So there you'll see. I think you can. Let me close this thing. So there you'll see all the parcel boundaries are available. And I think a lot of Honourable Bateman, this department doesn't show what it has. Deeds, cadastres with us, the land system is brilliant. And we need to develop these. And this is part of the work that we're doing through the department on the IMC on spatial governance, building this into a national spatial data observatory system where we bring in authoritative data layers. But I mean, this is quite nice because I can put on hybrid imagery over this, and you can start then zooming in to different farm portions and seeing what's happening in the country. So I would like to maybe just leave you with that, Chair. I can go through all the questions, and I will do that report for you on what we've agreed to today. Yeah, I don't know if that's fair, Chair. I'm going to just put this off.
Yeah, no, I think I appreciate that, and thank you for sharing that dashboard, because I think it helps. Almost, if you like, we move away from myth as to how much land and all of that to ultimately knowing exactly where we're at on this particular program. So I appreciate that. I also would like to request just formally that the responses that are outstanding be furnished to the committee within 7 days, simply because from next week, Wednesday, if I'm not mistaken, the committee engages public hearings, and then after that, we begin to compile the report that goes into the appropriations, and then Parliament will vote on it on the 23rd. So that's where it's at. But without too much, I will appreciate that if we could fulfill that 7-day bit. And I want to thank the team in its entirety for their presentation today.
Chair, we will agree to those 7 days and providing you with that full list of answers and questions. Thank you.
Much appreciated. And thank you so much for the team to have presented here today. It's really certainly on some of the recommendations, on some of the issues, we'll have to engage a little bit further in our dialogue when we put together our own submissions as to where the department is at. I would be naturally interested in some of the report that emerges as to what the separation of the departments has worked, what some of the changes go in from that, because that's going to be important. We've got 2 votes, one on agriculture and the other on your or on Department of Rural and or Land and Rural Development. So those two things, we need to understand how the interrelations between those two things go. So I appreciate the feedback on that. Thank you very much to the department. I want to thank you. I think what I'll do is I'll move, given that it's near 12 o'clock and there are other BRRR processes that members are engaged with. I know there are others where other committees are going into. With there not being any further bits, I will release the department, and then we just need to finish with some announcements that for members here today.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Honorable members, as we bring the meeting to a close, you will remember the last time we had a physical meeting, we'd received a letter from Stats SA that requested of us to attend to the additional funding of Stats SA and the I think I can't remember what the technical term is for the housing bit. Part of what's difficult about the implementation of the Money Bills and Related Acts and Related Matters Act, which is the report I actually want to compile for the Speaker, is to say this is some of the lessons. The first lesson is we'd written officially to the FFC. They've responded by saying that actually for them, they can't undertake that kind of research, so they decline any assistance. And I'd like to feed back to the FFC to understand that naturally, our engagement with them then becomes, in essence, in future, just analysis rather than actual work, which deals with it. It's the National Housing Corporation. Thank you, Mashile. We've written to the PBO, which is the Parliamentary Budget Office, and they will revert back to the committee. But because now it's new capacity required from them, it has taken some time for them to get back to us, which, in essence, by the time we make submissions to the Minister of Finance, there may be some challenges in terms of time, but I'm really wanting to painfully go through this process so that we can highlight the limitations of why you can have a law, but it's actually meaningless, and you render Parliament meaningless by its extension. So if the objective isn't met within this current adjustment, what we'll need to do is that compel the Minister of Finance, when they table the medium-term budget policy statement, to be able to put together either a special appropriation or we can go from there. But we're working hard on that, and I thought it'd be important for members just to be informed on that. I have reached out to the Minister of Finance to sensitize him on this matter. So I haven't gotten feedback. We will work beyond that. And then just so you know, we have our committee meeting also meeting tomorrow. Mashile, I don't think there are any other announcements that I have in this regard.
No, sir, I think you've covered them all.
Yeah, we've dealt with the portfolio committee that deals with this matter, so we've given them an update, but then we'll proceed to it. Tomorrow's meeting, Mashile, is with the Department of Trade and Industry. If I'm not mistaken, it's in what committee room number is it in?
No, we are meeting with the Department of Minerals and Petroleum. It's going to be 314 in the Max building.
Yes.
Yes. They've
Okay.
already sent the presentation. It has been circulated.
Perfect. So in that light, honorable members, we will then convene tomorrow in Marks. I look forward to seeing you. Thank you very much. I will at 12 o'clock adjourn the meeting. The meeting is thus adjourned.
Recording stopped.
Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Chair.